Hey folks, welcome to the podcast version of Spreadin the Baseball News with Larry. I hope everyone is well. For those of you who have followed my YouTube channel, where I've been talking about baseball in Taiwan and in the States, between North American game and the game in Taiwan, I thought I'd talk today a little bit about one of the things that come to mind. First of all is ticket prices. Somewhat outrageous, particularly in big markets. Certainly the price varies on what stadium you're in. Certainly in the New York metropolitan area, the Yanks and Mets are at times prohibitively expensive, and also where you're sitting. But you're not talking about a couple bucks. I often think that I wonder how a family of four can actually afford to go to a ball game, because you have decent seats and you're spending maybe 25, 30 bucks or higher, 50 bucks a seat, and the four of you, well over 100, maybe approaching $200, plus buying food and souvenirs, gets to be really prohibitively expensive. Versus in Taiwan, for an example, I think the average ticket prices during the week is probably about 350 New Taiwan dollars, Taipei, and maybe 450 over weekends. So at 350 Taiwan dollars at current rates of exchange, that's what? About $12, $13. Not terribly expensive. So certainly ticket prices are a big difference. One other issue that comes to mind is entering the ballpark. Security, certainly in the post-September 11th world of America, security is pretty tight. For the most part, no packages are allowed into the ballparks. Can't bring in beverages. Depending upon the stadiums, some stadiums allow you to bring in food, other stadiums do not. Certainly Yankee Stadium, you actually can bring in food, just no beverages, which is a hell of a lot better than Madison Square Garden and our dear friend James Dolan, who doesn't allow you to bring in anything, just so that you can get poor buying stuff from the concession stands. But certainly entrance into the stadiums is somewhat restricted, and frankly there often are long lines going through quote security to get into a game. Certainly, again, Taiwan being one of the safest places around, it is much easier to get into a ballpark. Bags are allowed. You can bring in food and drinks into the stadiums. I think there's one other thing is I'm not sure whether you have scanning devices in Taiwan versus or any sort of other security, which I don't think you do in Taiwan, but certainly in the States, not dissimilar to getting on an airplane. So that clearly is another difference between going to a game in Taiwan and the States. Another thing that comes to mind is food. And again, I often think that with all the new ballparks in North America, what it really is, they're not really ballparks. I often think of them as bars and restaurants that are surrounding a ball field. New stadiums are just so much food for sale. And again, as I said, it's not cheap, but generally for the most part, traditional horrible American food, and very expensive. And I'm just thinking about the price of a beer in a Yankee Stadium, often warm beer for, I'm looking at $12 for just average, not even top premium beers. Very expensive. You do have also in the stadium concessionaires walking around selling stuff, whether it's hot dogs, peanuts, Cracker Jacks, beer. I think that you probably in Taiwan, I don't think you have as many people really walking around stuff. Prices are a little bit higher. And again, it's offering, traditional Taiwanese food. One thing that comes to mind, by the way, which is food being a very important part of Chinese culture. I remember once going to a game in Tianmu, and as we got into the ballpark, there was a giveaway, which was food, and every person entering the stadium got a small bowl of noodle soup of tang mian. And I was thinking, I can't remember if it was June or in August, during the baseball season, it's incredibly hot and humid in Tianmu. It was an evening game. It was, I think, a 6 o'clock start. And here I am getting a bowl of noodles, of soup noodles, of tang mian, and I was sweating to begin with, and after that I was really sweating. But that's, again, one of the funny things, an example of some of the differences between Taiwan and the States. Another area that I think is different is how the fans root. One of the things, often fans can be sort of stirred on to rooting by the stadium, by the organist, but a lot of it is I think more spontaneous. The cheering or the booing for players, and certainly sometimes some home players really get booed. And again, if it's a game between rivals, maybe the Yankees and the Red Sox, or the Cubs and the Cardinals, fans can be pretty vocal and pretty tough on the opponents, and sometimes players, home team players, that have fallen out of favor, which is very different from both Taiwan and then in Korea and Japan, which is the cheerleaders. That's something that I think is a little bit strange to North American fans, and the cheerleading, if anything, is maybe a little bit reminiscent of college sports in North America, but it is really, at the professional level, it's quite different. And probably one other thing that I see is a difference is a degree of interaction between fans and players. One thing you will see that players sometimes during the games will sometimes get involved in conversations with fans. That would certainly, particularly the outfielders, if people are yelling or talking to them from the field. So there will be some sort of interaction. Sometimes the fans are giving them a hard time, and some players like it. Some players find it entertaining. Some players are unnerved by it a little bit. But the other thing is there certainly is more interaction before the game. And for any of you who've gotten to a game in North America early, there is batting practice. And during BP, during batting practice, fans get to watch. And then when players go back to the clubhouse before the game, they do come over to the stands and will chat with players. At least some fans do, autograph, and there is that interaction. And I'm not sure there is that interaction in Taiwan on this point. One thing, though, I have also noticed is that at the end of the game in Taiwan, although there's not necessarily fan interaction, you do have in Taiwan where the most valuable player of the game is given an award, sometimes on the field, sometimes in the locker room, and that's a little bit different than we generally don't have a quote MVP for the particular game in North America. Of course, some players will be, one of the stars might be interviewed on the field by the television announcers or the radio announcers. So these are just some of my thoughts about sort of the differences from the spectator perspective between Taiwan and the States. Again, I would say that, to me, I get a kick out of a lot of the traditional food and the cheerleading in Taiwan, but I would say for the most part the fans are not as rough on the opposing team, or not as rough on their home team players who are struggling. And I think maybe it's just that Taiwan is a more civil society than America. And given what's gone on in America of late, I would argue that it probably is. So, till the next time, I have some more comments about other things about North American baseball. So look forward to seeing everybody soon. 再见.